Gemma here. I am together again with Kathleen Burke. We had done a Be the GC program in March, and there were a few outstanding questions. So we're here today to address those questions. So hi, Kathleen. It's great to see you again.
Hi, Gemma. How are you?
Good, good. So one of the questions that came up that we didn't address fully, and then there was some follow-on questions around this, is the concept or idea that your legal team and other legal teams within the in-house profession do not review every contract. And so the specific question was, are there certain categories of contracts, or what factors and criteria do you consider when deciding whether or not it's a legal resource or another resource that reviews a contract? So speaking in generalities here over the course of your in-house career, can you give us a little bit more information on that question?
Yeah, and I think the right answer depends on the nature of the business that you are representing. So what might be right for my company wouldn't necessarily be right for somebody else's. So I think you have to look at what's the risk profile of your business agreements. What's the skill set that's available to you in terms of resources? Do you have a contract administrator? Do you not? How sophisticated are your sales guys and not? So there's a lot of factors like that kind of go in initially. But then I think you look at both quantitative and qualitative things. So for some companies, you might just sort of have a dollar threshold and say, look, under a certain dollar threshold, we're gonna live with this. But sometimes, and at least in the case of my company, we layer qualitative factors on top of that. So for example, anything that has to do with IP ownership, when you're talking about developing something with a customer or a vendor, or anything that has to do with development and IP, that's going to get reviewed by lawyers. There are certain product categories that are particularly complex and bring their own set of kind of risk factors with them. Those kinds of products are always going to get reviewed. Even some end markets, right? If it's for, we do some work in defense. So those are areas where there's kind of a heightened risk, and you're going to want to look at those. So it's really, for us, it's a combination of all those different things. You have to kind of look inward and outward to assess what is the risk profile. I think there's no single right answer, and you have to know the nature of your business to know when you kind of can get to a comfortable level.
And that's very interesting because in the various roles that I've played in my in-house career, there has sometimes been that quantitative analysis, but I see that businesses are moving away from that and applying more of the qualitative analysis, as you said. Understanding how your business is staffed is really important, and if there is a contract management function. I also think you mentioned intellectual property. There are instances from talking with members and in my own experience where there are categories, even if the contract as a whole is not going to the legal team for review, the legal function doesn't own it, there may be certain provisions that in every instance, like intellectual property or limitation liability or indemnification. So when we think about the automating of contract review, right, and some technical solutions now for contract management, there might always be a short list of sections that go to legal. So
yeah, and it brings up a good point. There's two other things. One is obviously if it's on your own form that's already been fully vetted, I think you can get a little bit more comfortable with that. And the other thing is if you are able to train the other people who are touching the contract in terms of saying, here's our risk profile that we can live up to. We can't live with unlimited liability. So if that's proposed, escalate it. So you can also sort of say, here are some parameters, and if you go beyond these parameters, then you escalate it.
Right, and I'm glad you re-emphasized the training piece. I think for folks that are considering this, training is really a critical component, right? So rather than just cutting folks loose and saying, okay, you can run with, we've deemed this low risk, you can run with it. You really need to train the folks that are going to be on the front ends of some of these deals.
Yep, and we have developed a playbook for review, which allows people to kind of reference information, sample clauses, things like that, so that they can take a little bit more autonomy. But the legal department's always there as well.
Great. Okay, and there's one other question. We talked about the skill set that as you grew the department over your 16 plus years with the company, a skill set that you look for outside of the strict sort of academic legal acumen. Can you talk a little bit more about that for us, Kathleen?
Yeah, and I think we may have alluded to this a little bit in the prior discussion, but for me, well, I will say, depending on the size of your department, you may or may not have room for specialists, right? People who are really deeply knowledgeable in one area. But for everybody across the board, for sure, one of the most important things from my perspective is sort of a business pragmatism, which is, really kind of solutions-focused analysis. So not, just identifying things that are wrong, but are taking that, kind of translating that into an assessment of the corporate's risk profile, and then coming up with a solution. So you really should be, your deliverable isn't the legal analysis, your deliverable is the business solution. And I think that because we've built a department that really kind of, everybody has that sort of same sense, we are really approachable, and we have a very, very good relationship with the business. It's not like, oh God, we got to go to legal with this. They really see us as, okay, these guys can help us navigate these issues. And even with the most kind of complex, sensitive IP, biggest customer issues, the team is absolutely essential, because we can help, brainstorm and focus on how do we get to the place we're trying to go. So I think bringing that to the table it's not only important because of what you're doing as a job, but it's also important because it makes you very credible as a department. Again, people don't see you as a box that has to be checked, but see you as a means to help to drive to the end. And then in those cases, once you've got that credibility, in those cases where somebody wants to do something, you say, no, you can't do that, but here's what you can do. It's not, people aren't throwing up their hands and saying, go, legal's getting in the way again. So it really is kind of a mindset. And the other characteristic that is very important to me is a sense of humor, because it's pretty stressful. Things can get pretty crazy. And if you can't, everybody has their moments, but at the end of the day, if you can sort of laugh about it and feel like, your teammates are rooting for you too, it just makes things a lot easier. So that's important to me.
That's right. I love hearing that, because I think as in-house practitioners, we strive to be trusted advisors, right? We don't want to be, I've heard the Office of Business Prevention or the Department of No, all these negative nicknames. And I really like that what you said, and I agree that if we can embrace the business and really analyze this from a broader perspective than our counterparts in the private bar can, then when we do have to say no, we say it, and there's credibility to it, right? Yeah. We're not saying no all the time. So, well, Kathleen, it's always a pleasure to speak with you. Thanks for taking the time to give our members this invaluable advice. We really appreciate it. And enjoy the rest of your day. Thanks, everyone.